Welcome to the egcfpodcast, where we have in-depth conversations about topics that we may not cover on Sunday morning. In this episode, we talk about spiritual warfare. Happy Friday, everybody. My name is Nate. Welcome to the Egcf Podcast. I am joined by Blake Roseman.
Hey.
I am joined by Tyler Jones.
Hello.
Annie Jones.
Hi.
Janelle Green.
I hate this.
Robbie Woodrum.
Hello.
And the man, the myth,
The Grand Poobah.
the Grand Poobah,
Yes,
Rob.
my child. Yes, my child. Go on, my child.
Rob, the pastor.
Nothing disturbing about this.
Not at all.
We've told you. If we told you once, we've said it 100 times. We're not a cult.
Rob, why are you leaving, dude?
Yeah, don't suggest to change the intro again.
Okay, so
Let that be a lesson to you.
I take everything back.
Welcome. So, what's this thing about spiritual warfare?
Have you heard of it before? Genuinely, I'm asking.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I can't say that I know much about it, but I've heard
You haven't fought
spiritual
yet.
warfare where there's demons and stuff and angels and they're fighting each other and
Sometimes we're in the crossfires.
sometimes yeah.
Interesting. That's an interesting conceptualization of it all. Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's a biblical concept. The idea that, we go to Ephesians 6:12. Paul says, "For we're not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against the rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." So he's describing there's a conflict that's taking place, and we as the church are engaged in this. And the question then is is your question that we begin. What is this, and how
To what
are we?
extent?
To what extent are we engaged in this, and how do we go about doing this? Like Paul's describing this. That's great. That's a setting the scene for us, but he doesn't give us any specifics as to how this goes down. So there's a lot of different views about this throughout different church traditions.
I'll also add, are we necessary to win this?
I would say no. In that, when we think in terms of, we'd have to look this up. But where Paul talks about having disarmed the principalities, Jesus's work has done that. So the victory is provided through Christ's sacrifice, and that's assured. So
can I add real quick? I guess I wasn't necessarily taught this growing up, but I've heard of guardian angels. We have guardian angels. There's Satan, the devil, who has a legion of demons or whatever that are within the spiritual realm, I guess, that are.
It's not all that clear.
Causing a lot of trouble.
You're describing that, and that's definitely the narrative that's presented a lot. It's not quite that clear in Scripture about that.
Okay.
I mean, there are, we got Revelation 12 where the serpent who's John identifies as the devil draws I forget the percentage, but a percentage of the stars out, a third of the stars out of the sky, and that's been interpreted as being the fallen angels, the angelic beings that went with the Satan in this great rebellion against God. But it's all
Imagery.
It's very. There's no.
Because I feel like I have had it presented to me, not by you, but by other people, as if that is very clear.
Yeah, even guardian angels. Jesus is making the statement about how to not forsake the children, to allow them to come in, for their angels are always before the face of God. And so that's where we even get that concept that everybody's got a guardian angel. But I don't know that we can infer that from what Jesus is saying. He's just saying that the children are important because they have God's attention. God cares about everybody equally in that sense. In the ancient world, children were of less value and less importance outside of anybody's own particular family.
So something that I was taught was that Satan was an angel that had fallen.
And again, it's, now if you really want to try to get in depth on all that kind of stuff, Michael Heiser's book would be probably the go-to on that, on the unseen realm. I'm not sure I'm tracking with Heiser on every aspect of what he says. It's dense. I mean, it's a dense argument, but I guess he would be an angelic being, part of, the divine council.
Why do you say I guess?
Because it's not spelled out that clearly. It's just really not. Like we're interpreting Isaiah 14. Somebody's going to have to look it up. It's
Also, Annie looked up
We get some of it from-
Annie looked up Colossians 2:15. By the way, in this way he disarmed the spiritual rulers and authorities. He shamed them publicly by his victory over them on the cross, which I think is an important one we'll want to come back to.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So then Isaiah was.
Is it? I think it's 14 and Ezekiel.
What is it
21.
about?
It's a prophecy against
Satan's fall.
It's a prophecy against one of the rulers. I think the ruler of Babylon. And then all of a sudden the language kind of changes up and says you were the morning star, and you've got the five I wills.
So Isaiah 14:12. Now I'm in the NKJV. Is that okay?
So it's fine.
All right. How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning.
Yeah.
How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, the lowest depths of the pit. Mm-hmm. Those who will see you gaze at you and consider you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who did not open the house of his prisoners?
So, and there's other, I think maybe it's the Ezekiel passage, then it talks about you walked you walked in Eden or something along those lines. And
then we draw some imagery from even the book of Enoch on the spiritual matters, which is an apocryphal book.
It's an apocryphal book, but, that seemed to have some
right, but
influence on the thinking of the biblical authors. So I guess what I'm just saying is that it's not explicitly stated. I think it's a plausible argument that these were prophetic utterances that actually were, even though they're directed at earthly kings, were reflecting something that had happened in the unseen realm. But it's a guessing game, and it's not specific. And when, like, Lucifer, that is not a name. That's son of the morning. It's morning star. It's a kingly title. It's applied to Jesus in a different messianic prophecy. So I don't think it's
like not the name on his birth certificate.
It's not the name on it. So that's the thing about the Satan, and that's why you'll hear it. I always put the in front of it.
I didn't know if it's because we're in the South and people say like the Walmart.
No. You going to the Walmart? No, the Satan, and because the Bible, I believe, takes great pains to not dignify this thing with any kind of personhood, or it's an it, and whatever it is, it's definitely working at odds with God's purposes and plans. It's obviously got sentience to it. Jesus interacts with emissaries or aspects of whatever the Satan is when he's casting out spirits from people. So there's some, means of being able to communicate and all of that, but it's very mysterious, and it's given very little space in the biblical narrative, which is another thing I find fascinating, that, there's no detailed explanation. Go to other religions, man, if you're looking for those details on that kind of stuff, because the Bible is going to be stingy with that sort of stuff.
So there are satanic forces or evil forces at work. Is in that just the spiritual realm, or is that like on the earth?
I think it's both. I think it's both, and I think that's what even Paul is trying to get at in some of his in some of his usages of this, because it's principalities of the unseen realm, but it's influencing and affecting what's happening in the seen realm.
So can we fight against these forces of evil, I guess?
Tinfoil hats, I think.
Are we supposed to?
Yeah, and are we supposed to?
Yeah, so that's so like you had brought this up. Did you bring it up in our conversation just now? But like what Paul is describing here, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Our battle isn't with flesh and blood. In other words, there's no human being who's going to be our enemy. That, you know, we love our enemies. We pray for those who persecute us. But there are unseen forces at work, and he's saying that we're wrestling with them. But he doesn't explain how. He doesn't tell us what we're doing. But if we want a clue, we can look at apocalyptic literature like Daniel. And in Daniel chapter
9,
maybe 9, maybe 10.
I just read it on Monday.
Yeah, I believe it's in 10. No, it's in 9. I'm sorry. It's either way. When Daniel goes to prayer, he realizes Israel was supposed to be released after 70 years. Was supposed to be going back to the homeland. So he begins praying, and he's praying repentance and everything on Israel's behalf. He's confessing the sins of Israel. He's praying for God's help. The angelic messenger shows up, and he talks about how from the moment Daniel began to pray, he was set out as an emissary to answer him, but he got held up by the prince of Persia, the forces at work, maybe territorially. That's kind of the implication that, you know, Michael had to wrestle his way through that. So here's what I'm going to say is what it's depicting for us. A picture, it's imagery of spiritual warfare. What's Daniel doing in this? Praying. He's praying and he's repenting and he's confessing before the Lord. That's our role. That's spiritual warfare. Every time I believe that we go to prayer, every time that we're praying and we're asking God for his intervention, we're asking for good things, we're asking for protection, all of that. I believe that's spiritual warfare. Those are the things where things are happening in places that we don't see or understand.
Okay, I found it in Daniel. It's in chapter 10.
I thought it was 10.
But he does show up in chapter 9 as well.
He does, yes.
So it says, "Don't be afraid, Daniel, since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before God, your request has been heard in heaven." So the very first day. "I have come in answer to your prayer, but for 21 days, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me, and I left him there with the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. Now I'm here to explain what will happen to your people." So it's this unseen realm where, like, they're fighting,
Yeah,
and
it's
another
kind of-
angel had to come and bring backup so that he could go deliver this message to
It's
Daniel.
cool stuff. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, how a person interprets that's going to be, you know, up to them. But I do think what we get there is a really good picture of what spiritual warfare is. It's when we're praying. It's when we're asking God for his help. And I don't believe it's an invitation for us to start conjuring up images of battles going on or anything like that. But just a reminder that you know, our words aren't hitting the ceiling and bouncing off. For 21 days, it felt like that for Daniel, but things were happening that he can't see, which is the same message of the book of Job. There, you know, so.
So I like that you said that whenever Nate was asking, you know, is this a spiritual thing or happens on the earth? And yes, it's both. So in Ephesians, the full armor of God verse, it says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world. So that's the physical area that we're talking about. And against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And then all of the things that it talks about with the armor of God is, I don't know. I know that this isn't the right word. Ethereal things. They're not physical. It's not saying like to grab a sword and to put on like, you know, good shoes or
no.
whatever.
He even describes what each thing that he is talking about using the imagery of armor for. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you get the belt of truth buckled around your waist and so on and so forth. And so. But I do think that that's interesting that there are also, whenever he's talking about these things, it's not talking about, like, I guess, a group of people that are doing, you know, drinking too much on the weekend or whatever. You know, it talks about authorities, like the systems that are in this world can become against God, but we don't go and fight them, you know, with a sword and a belt and nice shoes or boots or whatever. We'll fight them through prayer.
That's right.
And use prayer for them to to be rallied against, I guess, is about the best way to say
it's
it.
not even, and it's not, so like, I've got the experience of the crazy church behind me, which was a heavily charismatic church. And demonology was a huge part of this whole.
Did they call it demonology?
They didn't, but that's what it would be called in a theological sense. Demonology is the study of this, and so, our whole thing was following Jesus's example. We're going to be casting out demons and doing this stuff, and we would spend a great deal of energy praying to try to identify what demons we believed were operating behind the scenes in any given situation, and then give them names, and then we would start praying against those things by name. All of that stuff is absolutely unbiblical. There's nothing in Scripture that ever encourages us to interact with or to try to deal with the Satan.
Do you think people use Jesus' example of with the demons as a reason for why?
They do. I'm sure they do.
But you don't think that?
So here's what I think is really, really interesting about this whole thing. So like in the crazy church, we were so into demonology, and we had what we called deeper deliverance, which meant that we had, that there was all kinds of demons that were associated with us based on family ties and soul ties, and we had all kinds of things, or open doors that were there, that maybe objects in our house that still had a demon attached to it. And so we had to go through deliverance on a regular basis, start casting these things out to get fully cleansed and cleansed.
Because I've had an experience with that in a church as well, and it's like you go to a garage sale
and you gotta
be careful.
Yeah, to cast the demons out of that thing because Okay, so what I want to say.
How is this different from witchcraft?
Well, I was just going to say it's not, and I'm telling you, it's closer to animism than it is to Christianity.
What's animism?
Animism is the belief that spirits inhabit everything. So and so you've got to appease the spirits and make sure you handle them properly or whatever, or things will go bad in your life. So
what's going on with the demons that Jesus is casting out?
Okay, so Jesus does. I mean, that is part of his ministry. But here's what I want to think about with this, and this is really, really stuff that I've had to ponder a lot. What Jesus does. Jesus casts them out. He says to his disciples, "I saw Satan fall like lightning." In other words, his power, his ability to do so many of these things has now suddenly been limited based on what it is that Jesus has done. Jesus, during his ministry, cast out demons. Paul casts out, we have two instances where there's demonic presence and Paul casts them out. And then it goes silent. And we don't hear of anybody doing anything out of the gifts of the Spirit that Paul describes. None of them are casting out demons. It is never mentioned again in all of his epistles. He never talks about it. And when you encounter a demon, here's what you got to do. Instead, things that we were ascribing to demonic forces, he describes as the works of the flesh, and how we're overcoming those things. I think there's something significant in that. I don't know that I'm not willing to say, yeah, there's no such thing as people being possessed by demons anymore or anything like that. But I believe that something's changed, something fundamentally changed in the whole process, at least on the biblical narrative side of this. And I think it holds true. The fruit that I've seen come from people that get deeply involved in hunting for demons or interacting with demons is overwhelmingly bad fruit. It's terrible. And so to me, if we're going to use Jesus as criteria, you're going to be able to judge if this is true or not based on the fruit that it's producing. I'm going to go with that statement that it's bad fruit.
Well, and it goes back to, again, the verse in Colossians 2:15. Like I said earlier, he disarmed the spiritual leaders and rulers and authorities. He shamed them publicly by his victory over them on the cross. And I know that's something you've talked to me about because, I was involved in a church at one point that was similar to the crazy church and the demons. It makes me think of like when people were not like wanting to eat gluten. That was a big thing. And so you're saying like gluten is in this and gluten's in that. And so it's the same thing of like, that's a demon. That's a demon.
Right.
That's a demon.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it is easy to get caught up in it, and it can be scary feeling like I have to stay diligent and focused.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, you don't want to get sidetracked from the gospel. You're like, this is how I don't get sidetracked from the gospel, by making sure we get all these demons out of here. And I remember talking to you about it, and because I wasn't living here at the time, and I remember now I can look back and think like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking with me being like, and this is a demon, and there's a demon in my room, and this person, you're like, oh good Lord. But I remember you talking about too of like, but Janelle, like as a Christian, and now that we're saved, we don't have to be scared that a demon is going to live inside of us. The Holy Spirit is living there, and that's something that I think was very different from what I was hearing where I was. Mm-hmm. So what would you like? Do you want to expand on why you think that?
I just don't believe that there's any scriptural basis for saying that a Christian is going to have a demon indwelling them. And I know that people get into they say, well, he can't be possessed, but he could be oppressed or da-da-da-da-da-da. Again, it's parabiblical. That's all I'm saying, is that if there were something in the Bible that was going to lead me to that conclusion, I'd be all about it. But I don't see that anywhere. I don't see Paul saying, make sure you don't open doors, or the devil will get in there and things will happen and you'll have bad luck or any of that stuff. Paul says, resist the devil and he'll flee. Well, how do you resist? You basically do the opposite of what it is that the enemy is trying to do. If you resist, if I pull you this way, you resist by pulling back the opposite direction. That's how we resist. We don't have to. We're not talking about, fighting and getting into brawls or anything like that. We're just talking about, resisting those temptations, resisting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the verse you read how Jesus shamed them was by dying and not overthrowing them.
I think there's such a temptation for the sensational, and this lends to that. There's a dramatic element to it. There's a dopamine hit maybe for some people to feel like, oh, the elders of the church are going to pray for me. And I know Rob had gone through some experiences where he was helping pray for people, and there was a little bit of the attention. Some people wanted the attention, but also it's, an excuse. It can be an excuse for misbehavior. It can be like, well, the reason I'm doing this is there's a demon and he made me do it. And I feel like there's so much more balance. If you can recognize there's a spiritual world out there, but basically it doesn't change our calling, doesn't change our day-to-day walk and how we deal with that, and greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world.
And that is the huge thing. Like greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Is such a dynamic and important statement for Paul to make, and he's making it very clear in that we're not, we're not obsessed with these things. We're not afraid of them. We don't focus on that. That's just that they're defeated, and we're part of the winning team.
And I remember you saying that too, of just even how you don't always give credit to everything people would give credit to the devil for.
No.
Of the devil did this or the devil did this. And you're like, he might not have done that. And maybe we're giving him credit for some of these things. Like, we can, just be aware of that. And so that I feel like that's something as well of just trying to not make that our focus, because I do think, Mom, you're right. There can be a dopamine hit, or this idea of like, I have access or insight into the unseen world that not everybody sees.
Oh my gosh, that's
and feeling like you're living in this way, but I am seeing into this, and there would be you're right, the fruit was not good. There's so much fear, and I just remember too, it would be this thought of, someone's coming into church and we're looking at them and people say, okay, I think this person on the other side of the room, they have a demon. And they haven't said anything. They were just visiting the church, but there's this thought of, look at the way they're looking. Can you see it? Yeah, I see it too.
Granted, they were dressed in a red jumpsuit and they had horns and a pitchfork, but
it's subtle. You have to squint. But I remember feeling that of like, this is the good work that we do, is by being diligent and working against these things. And I think that you're right, though, of what Paul talks about, of like the works of the flesh is what the kind of focus becomes on. And then it's so much easier to just point out the demons and everything, like you said, Mom, rather than just.
I was involved with a guy. We were doing deliverance ministry. And so people were just, they make appointments and they come in and they talk about these things. And we're supposedly discerning what the demons are that they have to get cast out and stuff. And I would say that the majority of people that were coming into this were people that, A, like you had said, Robbie, really wanted some attention, or B, needed therapy. They honestly just needed somebody to talk to and talk about things that were going on in their lives or their
things.
Yeah, and this provided a platform for that. Albeit, then we got to start screaming at demons and afterwards. But
Did y'all do the naming thing because of what Jesus did with the man in Gethsemane? It said, "What's your name?"
Not Gethsemane, but yeah, Garrett.
There it is.
The Gadarene.
But but that's.
But yes, and he names himself as Legion, and that's I still say.
Yeah, but then so just to be clear, that whatever that entity was named itself, you guys had to give names to.
We felt empowered to start giving names. We believed that was discerning of spirits, is that we'd get a name pop up, and so we'd start, or we'd ask.
What kind of names did y'all come up with?
I don't know. I don't even remember now. Do you remember any of that stuff? I don't.
You blocked it out.
Janelle,
Was a female and not
Jessica,
part of that ministry?
Oh,
Bradley,
It's usually just one name.
Daniel.
Spirits of division or spirits of love. Yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff.
But he's like naming like what it's the harm it's doing.
Yes,
yeah.
And again, so I still insist, we have no idea who Jesus is talking to when he's with the Gadarene demoniac. I'm more convinced he's asking the guy, "What's your name?" He's trying to humanize him. He's very dehumanized at this point.
Yes.
I think he's looking at him saying, "What's your name?" And then the entity speaks and starts responding, giving its name.
I understand.
And so but I think that we're extrapolating a lot if we believe that gives us license to start.
And that's what I was wanting to get into. It's interesting that what we do with the Bible sometimes as Christians, there's this big emphasis on these things, and we've, like Nate had all these ideas of these things that come into Christianity. The third of the angels got taken down with Satan and all this other. We come up with these big stories on stuff that we have very sporadic information about.
Yeah,
we have really clear information about like how not to be greedy and how that's but we don't really focus on that. But even with like
what were you saying about demons now?
But with eschatology and the spiritual realm and stuff, it's all the things that we don't know about that don't have a lot of information about that. I guess we as humans just want to fill in these things and try and figure out what's going on here. And we're putting the focus on the wrong thing.
Yeah, well, so Janelle just made that statement when we were teaching the other day about it's a lot easier to do something like this, look for demons, than it is to figure out how to love this person who's in my life that's very difficult
Still
to
mad
love.
at you for saying that on Sunday. Man, that was a tough one.
Or actually, if you go back to the concept of spiritual warfare, God may just be calling us to pray, may be calling us to fast and pray. And sometimes that's the big part of the spiritual warfare. Is like, I think I'm supposed to skip a meal. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to pray. I'm going to trust God that He's in control. I'm going to try to follow His leading, or that kind of thing. I think it's just not always known. It's not as fascinating or exciting, but I think that's a lot of times what's involved. Yeah,
well, and it requires more surrender. We want to be like, when we hear spiritual warfare, like, I'll be on the front lines with you, and the angel's like, you're actually getting in the way. If you could just
sit
Peter
down?
rushing forth with the sword.
Yes. And we're like, I'm helping too.
Yeah, what I'm picking up in this conversation, and I feel like God has been revealing to me, is that we're not working against anything. We're working toward something.
There you go. Right on.
Towards something greater.
Yes, and we're facing resistance as we're moving, as we're wanting to advance the kingdom of heaven here, not through political machinations or anything like that, but through prayer and through demonstration of what the world could be if God were in control. Well, God's in control, but what the world would be like if we would recognize His divine rule, and so we display that sort of thing, and that's the work that gets resisted, and there's things that we're not trying to tear anything down. That's the whole thing. Like the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. Gates, we keep thinking of it in terms of, that they're attacking us, that the devil, the gates of hell are attacking us. Gates are defensive measures. That means that we've just moved in. We're moving in, and they can't resist it,
And look at how the walls of Jericho come down.
Yeah.
It's not in that, the wall, what? Oh, yes, that God did that. You pointed up, and I was like, what did I miss?
It says gullible on the ceiling.
But it's that same concept, I would think.
And here's the thing, too, and I want to be careful with this because I know that I could be very flippantly treading on people's experiences as well. And so I'm not trying to undermine anybody's experiences, or if they felt that they were really relieved after having gone through some deliverance or whatever. I'm not trying to diminish that in any way. I am saying, though, that from the biblical side of this, I just need to stick with what I see represented in that, and I don't see represented in that a lot of what we're talking about when it comes to how spiritual warfare is practiced.
What would you say, though, if somebody, because I feel like I've even said this to you. I don't remember what you said.
If it's negative, I'm sure you have. Oh, I'm sorry. That was mean. No, I'm sorry. Wait.
I'm sensitive.
Sorry, he was possessed for a minute.
Sorry, yeah, it wasn't me.
Is that if somebody says, I'm scared I have a demon, or somebody said, there's maybe a demon, whatever, present in my life, what would you say to somebody who's genuinely scared about that?
Yeah, and that's what I would say, is that perfect love casts out all fear. So dig deep into the reality that you're loved by God, that he's overcome the powers of darkness in you and in your life. The greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. That we have nothing to fear in any of these things, is because all authority in heaven and earth was granted to Jesus, and he has now entrusted that to us, which means there is nothing that can withstand. There is no demonic entity or power that could withstand your confidence in Christ's atoning work on your behalf. So there's an old story, and I like that it was told within the Pentecostal circles and stuff, but I enjoyed it. A guy was in Haiti. A minister was there in Haiti, and somebody came to him and was just weeping and crying and saying, listen, my neighbors don't like me because I've become a believer and I've renounced a lot of these things, and they have spread voodoo dust all over, voodoo powder all over my front porch, and I'm afraid to go home. I don't know what to do. What should I do? And he looked at her for a minute and he said, honey, kick off your shoes and dance in it, because they have no power over you whatsoever. And that's the reality of it. Kick off your shoes and dance in it. It means nothing. It means nothing. The only power that any of these things could have over us is what we afford it, what we give to it by our own fear or our intimidation of the unknown.
I think that is really incredible. To kick off your shoes and dance, and I'm all about that 100%. There's a lot of harm that can come from thinking that there's demons, and we want to afford demons or the devil to all kinds of things that are inconvenient in our life, or just things that happen. Like whenever you were talking about, some people just needed therapy and that kind of thing. Sometimes people are sick and or have mental problems, and people will say, well, it's because they got a demon in them.
Right.
You just got to cast it out and all this other stuff. Well, that's harmful to the people that are in that situation.
It is.
So that's why I think that it's better to err on what you're talking about, just focus on who Jesus is and not get into all that stuff, because it attributes, whenever you're talking about, like, we're attributing a lot of stuff and giving a lot of credit to the devil for, and it's not used, not even
devil wasn't even in the room, but he's like, thank you. I'll take
that.
That's really nice of you to think of me.
Well, I do think there's some value to recognizing that there's more to life in this world than just what we see.
I agree.
Right here.
I agree.
And I feel like that's the balance in all of this, it's there. I feel like there's things that we don't see and don't know. I don't know what it looks like or ever or whatever, but I think we'd be crazy to think that we're completely alone too. But to have the confidence that God's in control of that realm, and that's not something we have to feel like we have to control or take over.
But the whole point of the spiritual warfare, is that a biblical term, by the way?
Not really. I mean,
okay.
what I'm describing, but that's...
Okay, but there is obviously some sort of attention in the spirit realm. I mean, like, it's
some
not...
sort of what?
Attention in the spirit...
Attention?
Or conflict, or...
There is some,
there is
tension.
some
Sort of
tension.
conflict.
Did you think I was doing math?
I thought you're saying intention or attention.
Attention. I wasn't sure what you were saying. It was Cajun. That's all I could make out.
What I was
A
saying.
spirit
Spicy.
of Cajun... No.
It's a demon of Cajun.
But
there's some tension.
Yeah, there is a tension or a conflict or some sort of a conflict in the spiritual realm. I mean, we see that there's good thing. We hear about angels, Angel Michael, and
Right.
we hear about these enemies. There's something happening in the spiritual realm, and that's what we would call a spiritual warfare. And so there is something happening, and then that bleeds into what we see physically here on Earth, or it's just a
believe
mirror
so.
of, a shadow of, or I don't know how to say that properly.
For Paul,
Yeah.
when he talks about this, like it's back and forth. Like he's talking about actual rulers and leaders, but he's also mixing it up with, supernatural entities as well. So for him, it wasn't that much of a dividing line. For him, it was, this is happening. There's evil happening here. People are being persecuted and hurt. This is the work of our enemy. And it's working, it's being exercised through the actual authorities and systems that were in place. And so,
got it.
And so but again, I just don't think the overwhelming sentiment of the New Testament is never focused on what we can't see or any of that. I mean, it's in terms of trying to resolve it or get involved with trying to, resist that. It's always focused on the actual work of the flesh or the actual behavior of the person or that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm trying to say in that? I don't know. I think I got myself convoluted when I was trying to say it.
I mean, you can cut for this from the podcast if you don't want to talk about it on the podcast. But I had never heard of hell houses until I started dating Tyler, and he's been.
Did he take you to one on a date?
Living in it now.
Tyler, do you want to explain hell houses?
This sounds incredible.
So it's basically a haunted house.
I've been to
But yeah, so they take you through, and it's to scare you so that at the end of
Just
it,
scare the hell out of you.
yeah, basically, yeah. And so the one that I went to was about these two girls who were in a car crash, and
Mine too. That's
one
the
of
same
them
story.
was saved, and one of them wasn't saved, and so they both died in the car crash, and then and so basically at the end of the whole thing, they're like, so you need to pray this prayer so you're saved, so you don't end up like the girl who went to
Because
hell.
the hell house, like they show what hell is like for this girl who has died in
Yeah.
the car crash. So
And
it's
And that
there's the
gets us on a
girl,
whole
there's
different
the
topic.
Kids go
girl
to this?
Yeah,
who
it's-
believed
groups
is
go to-
like she is, you get escorted to heaven. You have this great. Where's my friend? And then her friend's screaming in the other room.
Gosh.
do we think that
You guys aren't telling me you've never been to a good old fashioned hell house.
Listen, I've heard of them. I've never been to
I have
one.
never I've never ever done. No, I'd heard of them, but I did not know that they were like that. That is atrocious. So we don't think that these should be illegal.
It's like a scared straight program for.
I mean, like this isn't.
It's like a haunted house, but with
but with
real
but
stakes.
Jesus' stamp of approval on it.
There's stakes of life and death, and that's why Tyler and I are Christians. We didn't even go to the same one, but it convinced me.
I didn't
put your
know.
seatbelt on ever since.
Yeah. No,
So
it's terrifying.
did you-
It's absolutely terrifying.
Did you stop believing in demons after that, or like, did you get saved that day?
How did that affect you? Like, was there a point in your life that you're like, hey, that wasn't cool? Or did that just hit you today?
Hey, wait a
The only
minute.
thing I don't like about Eastgate is we ain't got a hell.
I think just as I got older, my thoughts of everything just changed, and I was like, if God's message is all about love, why are we like why are there so many things teaching about fear and hate?
Right on.
And,
Why there's so many hell houses?
Yeah.
Preach.
You did tell me that as a kid, you struggled with knowing if you were saved or not because of
Well,
the
yeah.
constant messaging.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was scared all the time. I pray every night, like, save me, God, because I don't know if I'm saved.
Yeah, and that's so sad as a child. And I saw a documentary where someone was talking about how they left Christianity because they were tired of being scared, and that just broke my heart. That was
is
their
heartbreaking.
what their concept of Christianity was that, and they talked about going to bed every night and just so scared every night. And they said I left because they said it felt great to not go to bed scared every night anymore, and that was what they got to be free from.
Wow.
Good night, everybody.
Well, so that's what we want to remember is that All the promises of God are yes and amen in Christ. And that promise was that all the nations of the earth would be blessed through what God's plan was through Abraham. This has been accomplished. It's been done. We are secure in Him.
Finished.
It is finished. And the message of the gospel is not one of fear. Does it include the forecast of judgment? Yeah, it does. But it's predominantly the message of life, because judgment's already here. That's why John 3:16 is great. John 3:17 is so vitally important to have included in it. God didn't send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that through Him the world might be saved. The condemnation's already here. The Satan has already done all this awful stuff. The whole world is in the state that it's in because of what the Satan has done. Christ has overcome that, and He's offered us life. He's offered us the hope of a new world to come, where all of the evil that's here is undone and put back to the flourishing of life.
So there are forces of evil at work, and the war is already won.
Correct.
But there's still battles, right?
That's right.
And how we can fight those battles is by entering into prayer.
Yeah, is being consistent with the mission that Jesus set us on. That's prayer. That's going out and demonstrating the reality of God's kingdom. That's living according to His values and following His intents and pursuing His priorities. That's how it's all accomplished. That's what it's done. So that's a great way to. I've told this story before. I used to coach football when my kids were in little younger than middle school. Yeah, it was before they got into the school program. And we were a beach football team, and that meant we were terrible. And so we would go and we'd play other teams, and we would just get decimated. And at one point, I was looking at the score, and it was going into the halftime. It was 60-something to nothing. I'm not kidding. That was the score. And, we were looking at that, and the kids were like, do we have to keep going? And I said, well, unless they call the game, which they should have called the game. And they did. We didn't get to the fourth quarter. But we still had to go back out on that field. And so I was saying, in my analogy, everybody on the Springfield team, everybody wearing a Springfield jersey had won that game. Logistically, it was impossible for anything to be different. But they still had to go out. And they still had to snap the ball and run through the plays and keep scoring against us. But I mean, they still had to run the risks, of collisions and all of the stuff that were involved in that game. But the game was done. It was a foregone conclusion. Everybody with that jersey, everybody that identified with the blood of Christ has won. It's already done. It's done. And so, yeah, there's still conflicts that we go through. There's still things that we go through in this world. But that doesn't change the outcome of any of this. That is secure and certain.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you, the listener, have any questions, or if there's something you want to learn more about, you can send us an email at egcfpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I still got married.
I done got married. I did it again.